Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. When we go to a restaurant, we are happy to pay our bills. The restaurant has offered us food, drinks, a place to sit. We pay for it. We also pay a 5 to 18% GST on it. Then why also slip a service charge on our bill and pretend that it is a government tax that needs to be paid mandatorily? It doesn't. And that is what consumers have a problem with. No one says no to paying for good service. But we don't want to be arm twisted into doing so either. I may or may not like your service. I may or may not want to tip you for it. Also, how much I pay is my discretion. How can any restaurant present it to me as fait accompli in my bill and then expect me to pay it? The government has made it very clear, the Delhi High Court has made it very clear, and yet restaurants continue to serve up service charges on consumers. Consumers have complained. And the Delhi High Court has once again cracked down on restaurants today. In fact, the Delhi High Court has slapped a fine of 1 lakh rupees each on the National Restaurant Association of India and the Federation of Hotel and Restaurants of India. 1 lakh rupees each. The penalty has been imposed for failing to follow service charge directions that were issued by the court on April 12th, where these associations had been asked to file affidavits based on questions framed by the court. Essentially, the court had asked them about why they do what they do, which means sneakily slip service charges on consumers. All of this, ladies and gentlemen, is coming after 4,000 complaints were received by a helpline that is run by the Government of India. The consumers have alleged that there's a forceful collection of service charges. They are being forced to pay, and in some cases, there is even harassment if they refuse to pay the additional cost. Now, as I said, the rules are very clear. The High Court order is coming about a year after the Central Consumer Protection Authority issued guidelines that clearly say that no consumer should be forced to pay a service charge on the bill if they don't want to. It's as simple as that. The central guidelines clearly say that service charge is an optional charge and no eatery should add this charge automatically or by default to the bill. The eatery must voluntarily inform the consumer about the charge, which is optional. It's very important to note that, ladies and gentlemen. Citizens, consumers, more importantly, are livid that despite a Government of India guideline, despite a Delhi High Court order, we still continue to pay service charges at restaurants we visit. Listen in to some citizens.
Most of the restaurants are still charging the service charge, and I think it should not be there. And I think only once they are penalized, only then they'll understand. Otherwise, every time you have to tell them that you need to reverse this charge. They put it and then the customer has to tell them. So it's pretty irritating sometimes when you have to tell in front of 10 people that you have to remove this.
So we don't like service charges being automatically added to our bill. And if the restaurant owners won't stop, then they have to be fined. I'd agree with all of that, yeah.
When the government announced this, that service charges shouldn't be there, it shouldn't be charged, we all thought that it's going to be followed by the hotels and everything, but it wasn't. So I think it's a good decision from the government that they're finally charging, imposing some fine on the restaurants.
If you have a view on the matter, do call us. Our phone lines are now open. The numbers are flashing on your screen, 0120-663-4616. I'm going to repeat that number for you, 0120-663-4616. Let me quickly introduce my guest to you this evening. Tehseen Poonawala is a businessman. He's also an entrepreneur. So today, that's the capacity that he's joining us on the panel. Sachin Taparia is a chairperson and founder of Local Circles. He's invited to the show. Hi, Sachin. He's been invited to the show because Local Circles has actually done a survey about it. And he'll talk to us about the survey. And Bejon Misra is a consumer rights activist. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. I think I'll come to Sachin first. Sachin, what does your survey say? I know you've sent me a copy of the survey. I've read it. It's telling me that 43% consumers who have been surveyed paid restaurant service charges in the last 3 months. 9%, only 9% got it removed. Just tell us what the salient features of your survey are. What has your survey found?
So we've been on this issue, local circles, Shreya, for 6 years now. 2017 was when we did the first survey and escalated it to the Department of Consumer Affairs for action. And at that time, the survey basically said that, 52% people who had service charge levied on their bill essentially paid that service charge. 8% of them got it reversed, and about 19% restaurants did not charge a service charge. So fast forward that to 2023, the survey basically says that 8 or 9%, 9%, citizens fought it back, got it reversed. 43% basically, paid the service charge. And about 30% of the restaurants or 30% citizens did not get a service charge in their bill. So some progress as a result of all the back and forth, the guidelines. But the reality is that still the largest percentage of consumers who go to the air-conditioned restaurants see a service charge forced upon them in their bill. Most people, the 8 and 9% hasn't changed. You must note that from 2017 to 2023, because people, when they go out for social gatherings, which have really reduced post-COVID, it's, once or twice a month at best for most people. They don't want to get into an embarrassing, awkward situation, with their family member, in front of their family members, friends, colleagues, right? So people don't want to put a fight. So essentially what ends up happening is if the experience of the consumers is good, they pay that service charge, though, they're not happy about it. If the experience is bad, that's where it gets into fights and dissatisfaction. And I think that is the whole point, that this charge should not be a mandatory forced upon charge, but a voluntary charge, a suggested charge. You can even have 3 check boxes, 5%, 10%, 15%, and let the consumer decide which box they want to check or not check any box based on their experience, right? And let that be. So I think that's the big debate that's been going on for the last 5-6 years, which 30% of consumers are saying that they're not seeing this charge, but majority are still seeing it. So I think it's high time that the court and the government and mostly the restaurant owners really start complying to this. Be transparent, put it in, add the price of the service charge, whatever you're collecting in the price of the food. The consumer knows, what it's going to cost. It's pretty transparent. And if they're very happy with the service, let them, give a service tip. So I think that's what we need, going forward from here. And I really hope that with the court cracking down, the restaurants will come to terms with it and do the right thing.
I don't know. The court cracked down 4 months ago, and things don't seem to be improving because there are 4,000 consumers who've actually called the government helpline to say that they were forced to pay a service charge. Tehseen Poonawalla, you're someone who owns restaurants. I didn't know that, just by the way. But anyhow, what can be the other side of the argument? The fact is, why are we still having this discussion and this debate 5 years down the line? Why is it that 70% consumers are still being forced to pay a service charge? Look, the fact is कि सब 8-9% की तरह झगड़ालू नहीं होते ना. If I'm going out with my family, or if you're going out with your family and friends, even if I'm aware and I see a service charge in my bill, I will not sit and fight. But it can't be presented to me as fait accompli. If I like the service of the restaurant,
thank you.
I will leave a tip. Everyone does. Why force us?
So thank you for having me on the show, Shreya, this time in a different capacity. And so now I don't run restaurants and lounges and nightclubs like I used to. I'm obviously more into other fields. But yes, I am associated. And let me put this in 2 perspectives. So I do agree to most of what the earlier panelist, my co-panelist, said, except for one data point that post-COVID, actually restaurants and hotels have seen a massive surge. It's the highest it's ever been. So just that point he's got wrong. But all restaurants and hotels are running to absolute full capacity. But that's not the matter of argument. Let's come to the issue at hand. Shreya, the fact is, if you want a good quality restaurant, say you want a good quality Japanese restaurant or a good quality Southeast Asian restaurant, you would have to hire those kind of servers, right? And those kind of servers are very, very expensive. So what the restaurant should do, and I agree with the earlier panelist here, is make it absolutely clear upfront that, listen, we have a service charge. This is what it is if you come to a restaurant, because we need to pay our staff a slightly higher charge. Now, you may ask me, why don't restaurants or standalones or even five-star hotels simply, which charge so much, not pay a higher salary? They do. But the problem in India, unlike abroad, is, and this is a very practical problem, and some of your viewers and those who go to restaurants may try and understand it. In India, the corruption is so high to run a restaurant, even a five-star hotel, that right from your tax authorities to your police to your excise to within the police several departments to your corporations, everybody's taking money. One of the reasons why I left this business is it is impossible to run this business honestly. Everybody comes to take money. Where is the restaurateur going to pay for? If you want good quality restaurants, top class restaurants, and listen, a city can only progress if it has a very, very vibrant food culture and nightlife. Then you need to get the best chefs in, the best servers in, the best wine sommeliers in, the best wine servers in. You need to get the best wines, and then those servers will want that kind of money, and that money the restaurant cannot afford. So the patron will have to bear it. Now, I again agree with you that cannot be extorted from a customer. So for customers not satisfied, of course you cannot charge him. I also like this suggestion, and I will give it to the Restaurant Association, that you can have different brackets of it. But don't stop restaurants from charging, because this is how you'll get quality people in, quality chefs, etc. Also, one more thing, most patrons aren't very big tippers. So you'll have to get that into the service charge. But I do, and it's divided with the kitchen as well, right? So you have the best chefs, the best sous chefs. So you have to divide that. That's when they put in that effort. But I also want to make one more point. I'm very uncomfortable with government interfering in business. The other day in Assam, the government came up with a regulation that, anybody who wants to enter a five-star hotel for whatever private business will be allowed to, and you cannot restrict entry. Sometimes governments come down very harshly on certain amount of dress codes in a restaurant or certain amount of music. And I think private enterprise must be left to private entrepreneurs. Government, too much of interference, unless it's blatantly illegal, I think is not required, because that kills entrepreneurship. But the biggest problem is the corruption in the business. Shreya, just take one line more. You just go to one of these nightclubs or restaurants in Delhi, you will see there'll be 4 to 5 police department people coming for money. Then the excise will come. And I can say this truly because right now I'm not running it. But it's a headache to deal with them. How do you pay all of them? Where does that money come from?
But why should the consumer have to pay for that? Tehseen, ye kya baat hui? Why should the consumer have to pay for that? Give me a minute. Let's listen into what our viewers are telling us this evening. Give me a minute. Let me take 3 callers in, and then I'm coming to Mr. Mishra. 3 callers. Satya, you're calling us from Bangalore. Go ahead. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Shreya, I fully agree with you. What Tehseen Poonawalla said is, sorry to say, absolute nonsense. We do not want service charge to be put just because the hotel has to pay some corrupt officials. That is absolute nonsense. What I would like to simply say is that no restaurant in any part of the world except India has something called service charge. It should simply be removed, and if I have a wish to pay tips, I pay the tips. Otherwise, I just pay what the restaurant charges. If restaurant wants to collect additional money, they can increase the price of their food items and then pay GST accordingly. So my logic is very simple. There should never be an entry called service charge in my bill. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ravi is calling us from Bangalore as well. Ravi, good evening. Go ahead.
Hi, Shreya. Good evening. I want to make a limited point here. This is, of course, a discussion between the hotel owners and the government and whatever that bribe which is taken or whatever it is. These are all the nitty-gritties of the business. I'm purely speaking from the waiter's point of view, or from the people who are serving from their point of view, right? I talk to people. I generally go to the restaurants and I generally talk to these people because these are the people who are really suffering. These are the people who are really kind of working 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day for a very minimal salary. So what I understand is, on one side, while appointing them itself, the hotel owner says that, okay, you get so much amount of tips, so we will give you, instead of 10K, we'll give you only 6K kind of a thing. You will get 4K from the tips. or service charge or whatever it is. So they have already taken into account what the future tips, what they may receive from the customers, and they've already reduced the salary. So ultimately, if there are people who doesn't give you tips, right? I mean, they have to work for only 60 or 70% of the amount of salary, assuming that this is like an incentive or a bonus in a software company, right? I mean, it may come or it may not come, but already these people have already taken into account that this will come and they have already reduced the salary. So the plight of the waiters and the servers and the people who are serving there is really pathetic. So
Okay.
all said and done, these are the big people who open restaurants and hotels and bars and other things. In order to accommodate for them, they don't give bribe easily, right? I mean, they don't give bribe for nothing. They would occupy something like a footpath or a parking lot or something. They would use something for which they are giving bribe and they are taking the advantage of whatever is a public place or something. They would put a shelter or something like that, right? I mean, if everybody is 100% true, why should somebody give a bribe?
In an ideal situation, yes. But we know how the system works in India, I think. Who should I go to next? We have a caller from Rohtak. We have a caller from Delhi. Manohar is calling us from Delhi. Manohar, good evening. Please go ahead.
श्रेया हेलो
जी मनोहर जी बोलिए.
हाँ मैं बोल रहा हूँ रोहतक वाला ले लिए. हेलो आई एम मनोहर.
नहीं रोहतक वाले. Yes, Mr. Manohar, I know you're calling from Delhi. You're not calling from Rohtak. Go ahead, please. Good evening.
Good evening. The problem is that these restaurants, they are charging.
टीवी की आवाज पीछे बंद कर दीजिए पहले मनोहर जी.
The
Go ahead,
the problem is that the prices are so high. When we go for 10-12 persons on my birthday or otherwise, prices are very high, and then they charge the service charge as well as we offer tips also. So I said, what is this? Taking a fight with them is no use. So now I have shifted myself. I order a chef at home, and he prepares the food, gives me the menu. I give him a menu, and he gives me the list of the product. I am very satisfied. The best food I enjoy in my house on a terrace, there's no problem. But we cannot fight with the...
Okay, Manohar. Yeah, I agree with you. I know the point you're making because this is the point everyone will make. That don't arm twist me into doing anything. You know that when you put the service charge on my bill, I'm with my friends, I'm with my family, I will not come and argue with you. It's too embarrassing. Who does it? If I like your service, I myself will pay you a tip, and you don't tell me how much I need to pay. I will decide. I have Philip from Bangalore. Philip, go ahead. Good evening. Philip, if you can hear me, good evening. Go ahead. Okay. Bejon Mishra, we've heard from consumers. We've heard from at least 3 consumers now. And I think most of them are not making the same point. You know, there's one point that Tehseen has made about how it's expensive to hire good chefs, good servers. And if you're going to a top-end restaurant, then you should be ready to pay the service tax. But the fact is that service tax is paid by every air-conditioned restaurant. And most restaurants in this country, at least in bigger cities, in urban areas, are air-conditioned, right? Secondly, there was a caller who was talking to us about think of the waiters, think of the servers. A part of their salary are the tips that you leave behind. A part of the salary is the service tax that gets charged. So you need to be a little generous, think about them, and don't crib about the service charge. Do you buy those arguments that are coming, Mr. Mishra?
You see, we must respect all views. Number one, I am a firm believer that you must respect them. Number one. Number two, you see, what I have always seen in my 40 years in the consumer activism in the country, we never used to have these kind of issues discussed in public domain. all the restaurants used to manage themselves so efficiently, so beautifully. They used to take care of their customers. Customers used to be so happy. And you see, giving a tip or giving a service charge is a gratis. It is up to me how happy I am, and I want to recognize that person who has served me. And I want to leave behind some money for him, for his welfare. That's my choice. But the issue is that when we bring in a lot of laws and then we start forcing people, then there is a dispute which comes in, and which has happened in the service charge issue. My contention is the associations, the so-called associations, they have spent crores of rupees going and fighting the case up to the Supreme Court. Instead of fighting the case, they should have worked towards the welfare of their employees, bring in healthy competition, made the consumers empowered in terms of informed choice, not get into these kind of controversies which are happening today. And the worst thing is these kind of controversies are happening because earlier we never used to have any kind of a data keeping. Today, at least we know how many are saying what kind of a data is emerging, and we are trying to analyze that. And I believe strongly that it's the role of the industry to ensure that there is no kind of an intervention made by the courts or the judiciary or the policymakers to bring in changes which are not in their interest. So if it is in their interest, they should be working towards that rather than working against the interest of the consumer. So my short point is, first of all, I'm very happy that the High Court intervened and gave a kind of a signal that, look, if you don't listen to us, we would impose fine, which normally the regulator should have done under the Consumer Protection Act without the intervention of the judiciary, but good that they have intervened. But what I want to say is that please, for heaven's sake, don't deny consumers their choice. Let the consumer have a good, nice evening,
I agree
enjoy
with
themselves, go to the best of restaurants, let there be healthy competition. Let the consumers know from before that if they are paying for the food, it is also taking care of the welfare of the employees, and be very transparent. You see, Tasim should know that while he is not in the business now, he is very active politically. He should make the association
But Mr.
more
Mishra, I think that
proactive.
is the point to underline. That's the point to underline. Be transparent. Don't arm twist me into doing it. Don't slip it quietly into my bill. Be transparent. That, I think, is the operative word here. Before I go to Tehseen and Sachin once again, just allow me to take a couple of more callers. We'll take our callers from Mumbai now. Nishant, you're calling us from Mumbai. Good evening. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir, ma'am. I just wanted to point out, I'm a lawyer and a tax teacher also, so I can point from both sides. It's laughable that Mr. Tehseen says that the corruption part has to be collected from the customer. Let me point it out to everyone that when GST was brought out in India on 1st July 2017, the GST rate on restaurants was 18%. These restaurateurs protested it. The government brought it down to 12 in the view that the benefit should be passed on to the consumers. Then they brought it down from 12 to 5%, but that 18 to 5%, 13% drop wasn't put or wasn't shared with consumers because they included that GST reduction amount into their menu rate. So effectively, even the reduction of GST from 18 to 5% hasn't helped the consumers in getting their menu rates down. So GST is a legal charge that the restaurateurs have to pay, which they're still collecting from the consumers. So the consumers have to pay the legal charge of the restaurants as well as for the. My only suggestion is, if you want to collect service charge, increase your rate in the menu rates as you did for GST. If your patrons are regular enough and they find it affordable, they can very well come, or you will lose patronage, and that's for all you to see.
Correct. I agree with you. I agree with you there completely. If you have to, if you're saying that we need to pay our chefs more, we need to pay our servers more because of the service they offer you, include that charge in the food bill. If consumers want to order it, they will. If they don't want to order it, they won't. But don't slip it in. Don't slip it in to my to my bill after the end of the meal. Two quick callers before I go to my guests. We have Shanudev again calling us from Mumbai. Please go ahead.
Good evening. This is Shanudev here. So I have 2 points to make over here. One is that the quality of service has really deteriorated. As in, I'm talking in terms of the staff which caters to us, the staff which is looking after us, serving us food, and getting us all the nitty-gritties and whatever we ask for. The quality has deteriorated to such an extent that, I remember 20 years ago when we used to go to these fine dine restaurants, or even as children when I used to go with my parents to these fine dine restaurants, the quality was fabulous at that time. I mean, they were really good, very courteous, and they used to look after us. They used to, remember everything, every small order that we used to give them, it used to come. But now the quality has fallen so badly, so drastically, that, they don't even remember what your order is. And they keep confusing your order with the next table's order. And, I have experienced this kind of a thing that I've ordered for something else, and I'm getting something else. So, these kind of things are happening, and the quality of the staff and the service is really bad. Another point I want to make is that in the Western countries, for instance, in USA, I've been there. So when I've been there, there's no there's no arm twisting tactics over there. You don't have to pay, but then it's a norm. It's a norm that you pay 20% of the tip. Of the bill, the 20% tip is to be paid. So that's fine. Everyone does it, but why? But the reason is that they are really well looked after. Because the quality of service, again, I come to that point. The quality of service is good. So people love to pay over there. They willingly pay it. But over here in India, the quality, even in fine dine restaurants today, as a matter of fact, is really bad. So naturally, people don't want to pay. That's my point.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask our callers to wait. We have Colonel Dheeraj who's calling us as well. Colonel Dheeraj, okay, go ahead. I guess we'll quickly speak to you and then we can go to Tehseen. Go ahead, Colonel Dheeraj.
Yeah, my point is simple, that we should make all these things a bit more simple. The point is, there is no way you can define that what should be the price of a particular type of dish. So each restaurant decides what is the price. So the government should strike it that there should be no service charge at all. There should be no entry like service charge. You must be selling a burger for 12 rupees today. You sell it for 14 rupees and you cover up whatever your cost is. A simple bottle of distilled water costs X amount on the roadside, whereas you charge 3X. So you are already charging me. So the government, ideally speaking, the government should reduce all these options of trying to fleece the consumer. Have no service charge should be deemed as illegal, and you instead of 15 rupees or 30 rupees what you're charging for a particular thing, you charge 5%, 10% more, and it goes simple. Why make it so complicated?
Tehseen, absolutely right. Tehseen, answer to that question. If you look, include the service charge in my food bill. That's a more transparent way of doing business. What's the problem with that?
So lots of personal comments from some, also from a lawyer / tax consultant who I don't know. I would never consult in my life because I don't think he's looked at a single book of he's looked at a single book of tax in a restaurant or understands law. So let me just explain that for his understanding before I explain some other points. GST is 5%, yes, but there's no input tax credit. And there is no GST on alcohol. So first, for him to come here and make tall claims, he doesn't even know. 18% there was input tax credit. So coming here and talking, just because you read one line on Google doesn't make you an expert. But let me explain some important things because your viewers are right. Listen, what am I telling you? I am saying that service charge cannot be forced, and no restaurant forces it. They may be the odd restaurant that's doing it. It is wrong. It should be punished. It should be transparently put up front. Shreya, if tomorrow you and I go out for dinner, we know that the restaurant will charge us. It is put prominently at the entrance. It is put on the menu card. It is put everywhere so that the patron is not embarrassed. Even then, if the patron feels that they do not feel like paying the service charge, it should be made mandatory and they should be allowed to remove it. And I like one suggestion. It could be 5, 10, 15, 20%. But there is also a stark reality. Now, here's the reality. if you want the best people in the business, in the world, and you want to be a global food hub, which India should, Indian hospitality is amongst the best in the world, then you got to hire the best. And to hire the best, the only way they come and the only way they're motivated is upon sales. So that is an incentive. You cannot take away free enterprise. If I want to get a great Japanese chef, he's not going to come at 20,000-30,000 rupees a month. He's or she's going to charge me 3-4 lakhs. If I want a best bartender who understands cocktails, who's designed some cocktails, who can understand what you want, that costs money. And when they come down, they train in Dubai, they train in Switzerland, they train across India, some of the best hospitality industries. They are working on an incentive model. Now, that incentive model, I understand, can be voluntary, but you cannot say that that can be charged in. That is because how does a restaurant then put in so much investment in fixed costs in a restaurant that may or may not work? Therefore, it's an incentive-driven model that, listen, if my restaurant's doing well, you're selling more, you are making more money, I as an owner is making more money, and the patron is happy. One more thing, I found certain comments a little not very accurate. Most restaurants use technology, the latest technology in placing an order. What you place on an order is placed technologically, it goes in the kitchen or in the bar. There is a KOT that is generated. So it is in the rarest of rare case that your order could be mixed up. That's not a reason not to have a service charge or a reason that somebody forced you to do it. So I agree to what your panelists say, but this idea of saying, oh, but why do you have to get, you're not paying waiters so much, that's not true. Indian service staff is paid much lesser than what their Western counterparts are paid, much lesser. And it's high time we increase that. They deserve the best because they're amongst the best. We have the best chefs, the best bartenders, the best sous chefs, and they deserve it. And we need to do that.
No, Tehseen, I agree. Increase their salaries. Increase the salaries of your staff. Increase the salary of your chefs. But why? But why? Put it in the food bill. Tell me my pasta is costing 300 bucks instead of charging me 80 rupees as CS as service charge. At least I know when I see the price of my pasta, I know that this pasta is going to cost me 300
Shreya,
bucks.
What you are not asking.
Otherwise, if it says 250, I think it's 250. And then suddenly it's 300 because there is a service charge that has been added.
But Shreya, what you're not answering and what you're not taking as a variable into effect is, and I'm glad that you are a pasta fan, please don't order a tomato-based pasta because today tomatoes are 300 rupees a kg. You can't increase the price like that. So there are all of these fluctuations as well at the restaurant. At that point, the restaurant doesn't say, oh, but Shreya, you want a tomato-based pasta, but Tehseen wants a pasta without any sauce. So we will charge him 150, but we will have to charge you 500 rupees. You can't do that. So Shreya, these are variables that people also need to understand. Again, the commercial rate for electricity in a restaurant versus what it is for... so there are so many factors that have come in. And again, my advice to the tax consultant on your show, please read a little bit of tax before making personal comments. It's not fair. Nobody deserves to be had personal comments to be made. Let's have a civilized discussion.
Okay. I think we can take one last caller. Sarika, you're calling us from Bombay. If you're with us, go ahead.
Hi, this is Sarika here from Mumbai. I'm Sarika Garg, and I would really want to ask, I'm not happy with the service charge. Because, see, I'll just give an example. I'll just give an example. Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yes, if suppose if I buy a garment, so everything has been, all the cost has been included. The same as the food charge. The food, today the pasta, pizza, anything, it is highly charged already. So when you see the costing, it's everything has been included. So why service charge? I'm very surprised. Why they charge? When everything, all the cost has been included.
Okay.
Overhead comes, everything, the salary and everything has been included. They're not food.
I agree with you. I think we can quickly take Deepak. Deepak ji, you are our last caller. To all our callers, please, we are now closing our phone lines. Mr. Deepak is our last caller from Mumbai. Deepak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have to make 2-3 points. First is it's very shameful for Mr. Tehseen, who is now a politician, to say blatantly that corruption is there from top to bottom. Second is, let him include, he's an influential person, let him include that and let the restaurants start putting that as corruption charges and not service charges. And the third thing is, I would want local circle to find out exactly how much is collected by mid-level, high-level, five-star level, amount of service charges, and whether it goes to the people or it is taken by the owners.
Okay, Deepak, actually, you know what? The Delhi High Court has asked the Hotel and Restaurant Association exactly those questions. Tell us who's charging service tax, tell us who's not charging service tax, how much is being charged. But the Restaurant and Hotel Association has simply not responded, which is why there has been a 1 lakh rupee fine. Sachin, I can give you 10 seconds. We started with you. You've heard everyone. You've heard Tehseen. You've heard all our callers. Your last thoughts on this entire service charge business and why we are still having this conversation 5 years down the line.
Right. So, Shreya, I think, what Tehseen said, basically, that you've got to get the best servers and the best, chefs. I think all of that can be built in the price of the food in a very transparent way. You don't have to have a service charge. Based on how the restaurant does, you can incentivize, based on the revenues of the restaurant, you can incentivize the chefs and the, top class server staff that you have. Right. So that's point number one. Point number two, we talked about all this corruption, which is, I think, very important, and I think it should be addressed, and it's the reality. But the point is that the service charge cannot be used to generate black money, number one, and that black money being used to pay off, different authorities. That is just plain wrong. And I think what really needs to happen is the associations, instead of fighting with the consumer here on service charge, they need to come together and fight with these corrupt authorities. If 40 air-conditioned restaurants in a tier 3 town come together and say that, look, these are our issues, I'm sure they're going to get the attention of the municipal commissioner and the police commissioner and the mayor of that town. So I think it's the efforts of the restaurant associations, I think, need to be more to fight these issues rather than fight with the consumer and leave them, with a bad taste. Thank you.
Okay, Sachin, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Bejon Mishra, thank you very much. And Tehseen Poonawalla, thank you very much for this conversation. Actually, we could have gone on for the next 15 minutes as well, because we have a list of callers. But